It's good to have you back. And guess what? I have some good news. From here on, I'm going to start actually showing you some good stuff. In this lesson, we're going to have a look at the actual design. And this is really a bit of a process that's similar to what I would do with a client. Now, there are some differences here in that, well, I don't have a brief and I don't have goals apart from the ones that I've made up. But what I'm going to be doing is actually walking you through the design almost as if you were the client and I was presenting this to you. I'm going to be telling you why I've made some of these decisions, and this is important for two reasons. One, if you want to follow along with your own design, you can see some of the things, some of the design elements that I've designed in a certain way to teach you certain techniques. So you can kind of mimic those with your own design style. And then after this, I'm actually going to show you how to tweak the design yourself. All right, so let's check out the design and I'll walk you through that now. So what we're looking at here is the actual design concept. And this design has been designed specifically for a specific reason. Now the process that I'm going to walk you through now, it's actually quite similar to what I would do with a real client. The difference with this and a real client is that I'd be talking about their actual business goals and what we talked about in the brief. And here I'm going to be talking about the reasons that I've made some of the decisions and why I think this is a good approach for you to learn Oxygen. Now, as far as the overall general look and feel, I'll give a quick scroll up and down so you can get an idea. But what I've been trying to go for here is something that felt really modern and felt like an actual agency. I felt like it would be a good idea to make something that you guys could actually use when you create this. Whether or not you customize it or tweak it and change the colors, those things are totally up to you. And actually in the next video, I'm going to show you how we do that in the actual design file. So that might be a bit of fun as well. So you can see it's all really, really clean and really, really modern and set out like an actual agency with a few things like calls to action, some actual copy that you could use for SEO, and then things like blogs to link to. Finished up with a footer, your standard stuff. So once again, this is a real professional agency looking website. Now, I want to point out as well, this white on the edges, this is just because this is a fixed width design. And when we build this, we're going to build it so that it actually fills up the browser width and actually looks really good. Now, let's talk about the actual steps in actually building this. So this first part here, we're going to do this in the first lesson when we start actually building the site. And that's after we've done the basic introduction to Oxygen. There's a few things in this, like actually learning how to use the menu and the header builder, and some of this stuff like calls to action, and it'll be the first time we deal with a background image. In here, we'll be looking at how to do a few things like offsetting margins. And this is a little trick that we'll be doing with transforming this to actually make that shape without CSS. Here we'll be looking at setting up a gallery. And in that gallery, rather than using Flexbox, we're going to use Grid, and it can show you how to do some interesting shapes with galleries. Here, we're going to be looking at what is called the Superbox. And that is a really cool inbuilt thing that Oxygen has to actually make some feature images. And we've got some fairly standard stuff just to show you that bread and butter stuff that you do in Oxygen, like creating left and right column things with content. Then we're going to create this blog and set this up. Initially, we'll do this just as the layout, and then afterwards, we'll actually connect it to a real blog. Normally, I wouldn't do it that way. I'd actually create the blog, but it makes sense in this order to actually focus on these things first. And we'll do the blog when we actually build the blog and actually create those pages then. The footer is fairly standard stuff, and I'll be showing you and introducing you to the idea of reusable parts with this. All right, I'll quickly click through, and you can see this is just a representation of what the website would look like on a mobile. And it's not going to be perfect, and a few things we may actually tweak while we're building this. It gives you an idea that I've started to think about what we're going to be trying to achieve when this is in mobile. Now with the inside sections, I've got a few things that I want to sort of point out. We're going to actually build some of this stuff and allow it to be built in Gutenberg. So that's really, really important. Some of these things we can do with standard Gutenberg, like this part. And then some of these things we might want to make some custom Gutenberg blocks. So that'll be something really interesting to start with. Again, this is where we're going to actually introduce the portfolio. And on the home page, this same layout we've actually used as a gallery, but here we're going to actually set this up as a custom post type, And then we're going to show you how to walk through of setting up the custom post type and linking all of this stuff in Oxygen. And that means you don't have to ever add any stuff in Oxygen. Each time you create a new project, it will just be added to this dynamically. And again, that's a really, really important tip, because often when you're creating blogs and custom post types for projects and things like that for clients, you don't want them to have to edit this stuff. You just want it to be done dynamically. This is an example of what a project page will look like. And you'll see here that I've changed the header, and I've done this specifically, and I may do this on the blog as well, but I've done this specifically to show you how we can actually create a header that has this dynamic coloring on it by calling in these same images that are used in as a featured image, you know, in a blog post or a custom post type. So that's why I've done this. And again, this is fairly standard stuff that we'll be doing with Gutenberg. Lastly, we've got the blog. So again, this is stuff here that is the same as it's on the homepage, but by this stage, we'll be actually walking through setting up these posts and getting all of this stuff to actually pull in real dynamic data into the page. So that'll be really great. And then again, we have the actual detailed blog page. Now there are a few things that I haven't designed, and there are a few things that we won't actually all build together. Some of the standard inside pages, we won't need to do every single one of those ones together, but I will be stopping and doing some specific things, for example, like the contact page, so we can actually see how to do things like the forms. So hopefully you can see the reasons why I've designed the elements that I have, and why it progresses you through various stages of building sites and teaching you new techniques along the way. It means there's going to be a few things that we repeat, but it's going to keep things interesting and actually level up your skills as we go. So we're done for this lesson. The next one, we're going to actually look at the design file and start tweaking it. So if you are ready, click the complete, and I'll see you in the next lesson.